probably won't have to say this with you, and I do with everybody, and only one person didn't quite get the memo. But like, we're not, when I say podcast, I think everyone thinks Diary of a CEO. And then they start getting into this sort of autobiography of themselves. And it's like, no one cares about us. They might be interested in what we have to say about the thing that we've been doing with people like them. They're not so much interested in us as individuals. And that's probably very true with personal training in general, right? When you take a client on, how much are they actually interested in you as an individual versus how much they're interested in what you can do for them? And the difference between like understanding that as a personal trainer and how much you end up focusing on your client and focusing on like how you're going to help them versus, you know, I don't know, talking about your own training with them. I don't actually, that's a good point. You worked initially at a place called 639 with a group of other trainers, and you probably had during your time there maybe at least 30 to 40 different trainers that you may have worked alongside
Yeah.
in that sort of 10-year period or whatever it was. But you guys had a very high standard that you were trying to uphold. How much was it the culture to be sort of super client focused? And you were pretty much a determining factor of the culture, so I'm asking the right person. And how much did you have people come in and they were maybe not quite in line with that? And how did you kind of find those conversations where you were trying to mold that and having somebody that was maybe a bit, and I can maybe think of one or two people now, maybe a bit too self-absorbed?
Yeah, it just, I mean, just like anything, it just becomes really boring if you make it about you all the time. Like it's super boring. You can talk about it for a little bit, and then somebody else is going, okay, where do I shoehorn myself into this conversation? And so it's the same in personal training as in any walk of life. If you go to a business meeting and just start talking about yourself, people are pretty quickly going to go, what is going on? What are we supposed to be doing here? So I think, but some people get it much more naturally than others, to be fair.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not a natural. I'll talk
No?
about myself. Don't let me go too far. But I think it's some people are just very, very personable, and so you don't really have to set a culture or say to those people, look, we really want to focus on the client here. They'll just come in and chat to the client, and then they get it straight away. But some other people, I think, maybe more insecure about wanting to get the answer right, and so as a result of that, they're then focused so much on what am I thinking, what am I saying, and what am I doing. It all becomes about them by accident. I don't think most of the people I've worked with, myself included, at times when you've gone on about yourself for too long, it's not on purpose. It comes from a good place. It's just wanting desperately to get it right. Maybe not even know what the question is that you're trying to get right. Does that make sense? You're just going, I need to say the right thing. I need to impress this person. But as a result of that, unfortunately, they end up talking about themselves all the time, which is super boring.
I have often observed the newer the trainer, the more vocal they are during sessions, the more vocal they are during sets, the more they overcoach, over cue, over talk. And yeah, you're right. They are desperately trying to get it right. They are feeling insecure in that moment. And I don't say that judgmentally. I say that very much even from my own experience. I have gone through that journey of like, I'm dead quiet now, almost to a point where I'm not even there sometimes. I feel like you gradually learn how much you need to say and how much you need to give of yourself to facilitate that person's journey. It's very much case dependent because the person in front of you might actually be like, I have the opposite problem where I don't give enough of myself. I don't talk enough about my weekend. I don't talk enough about my training. And the person's like, I'm not connecting with you. And so there's a balance of how do you talk enough about yourself, but not to the point where it gets in the way of that person. They come in for their hour. There's the sort of physiological benefit of exercise, but then there's the huge mental well-being aspect of it, where they get to kind of air out their stuff. They get to have the conversations that they weren't able to have with everybody else. They get to talk about people that are maybe bothering them in their life that you don't know, so it's a safe place, and giving them that space and not completely crowding it with, your squat PB or or whatever it might be. I think conversations is probably like a really powerful part of what we do. And I'm curious because whilst I've worked a lot with people one-to-one in a gym setting, um, and a lot of the clients that most of us work with are office-based clients, are people that work in these sort of full-time jobs. And we get to hear a lot about the office politics and all the sort of dynamics of their workplaces and what they're dealing with. How much do conversations play a role in how these people engage with their sort of health and wellness? And I suppose I'm asking from the perspective of not just the conversations that we have with them, but maybe even, and it's a bit abstract here, so try and follow me if you can, the conversations that they have with each other in these environments and where they might lead to more health conscious decisions or less so.
Yeah, no, I mean, the conversations are the personal trainer's weapon of choice. I mean, that's how you get information across. That's how you listen to a client as well. That's how you gauge where they're at. That's how you ask them what they need. So it's an assessment tool. I mean, it's literally everything. I mean, if you're conversationally stunted, that's possibly the biggest thing. You don't need to worry so much about whether you should be supersetting decline with PEC-Fly, you know, working on communication skills, being able to, because I mean, our industry is young as well. It's a young industry. Most people get into personal training in their 20s, sometimes even earlier in their teens. A lot of people leave personal training in their 30s and 40s. So there's a massive bias towards people who haven't had life experiences of having children, maybe divorces, you know, parents dying, all these kind of big life events that help you connect with other people. A lot of personal trainers don't have that to lean on. So then you're looking at this thing of, I'm relying on my innate kind of enthusiasm and passion, knowledge, this kind of stuff to create those conversations that will help to build that relationship with the client. But I can't step into their shoes. I just haven't been on the planet long enough. I haven't experienced enough stuff to say I know exactly how that feels. So you can't empathize as well with someone. A lot of clients will be in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, you know, because they're people who've got enough disposable income to be able to afford a personal trainer. Maybe they're concerned about their health, you know, that kind of stuff. They're working their stress, so they want to prioritize health. So you've got this disparity in conversation already, and you've got these interesting power dynamics. So conversation in that regard, I think, is everything. But conversation, we see time and time again, is not enough. So you can inspire with conversation, you can educate, you can inform, you can connect, you can do all those brilliant things. But when it comes to actions, having the conversation, say, around mental health, it just becomes a conversation about mental health, not actually what are we doing. It's not the same as action. It's not the same as implementing regulatory change at an employment level. That's not conversation. That's people of power deciding this is important and making change. That's societal change. That's governance. You know, those things. That's the thing that actually makes the biggest difference to people's health and well-being. The conditions people are working in, what leaders in industry are doing with their employees, not what they're saying. So for me, conversation is like a double-edged sword. It's the only weapon we have as personal trainers to do everything we do, really. But it's not always enough.
How much do you think employers, government, people in leadership and decision-making positions actually truly care about employee well-being?
I mean, it's pretty good here in the UK. I mean, it's you know, we rate quite low on happiness scores and things when surveys are done when you compare us to other, you know, countries in the EU, for instance. But when you look globally, you know, the issues we're dealing with are often ones of wealth and, you know, people in positions where they've got everything you could need in life, but then you've got this big pressure to want to also not just be financially successful and live in a nice country where we have the NHS and all sorts of stuff like that, but it's also now we have to be healthy as well, and we can't brag about it. You know, there is a lot of pressure. So the lifestyle pressure in the UK is quite high. So generally, I think we care, but because the expectation is now so high, we're sort of struggling to meet that. So everybody expects to be well all the time. Everybody expects to be able to look after by the NHS. Everybody expects that, you know, we'll live a long life. And there are lots of places around the world where that isn't the case. And we sort of get trapped in this little bubble in the UK, even more so in London, where expectations is really high. Like, no illnesses, be successful, have a great relationship, smile all the time, be on Instagram, be an influencer. It's like, where's the reality in that? And I think people in government have got to juggle that expectation against, well, have we got the resources to be able to do this? Have we got bigger issues to deal with? You know, I don't know anything about that sort of stuff, how governance and how that works, but it's probably an ongoing battle that we're not necessarily getting as right as some of the other countries in the EU. I've done some work in the Netherlands, and the number of sports clubs and the regularity with which people will interact with clubs, outdoor exercise, versus here, they're sort of wiping the floor with us. And countries like Denmark always get rated really highly in terms of happiness. They just have a different culture. There's just a really different, and I don't know on that level how you go about changing culture. I've always worked like you. I've always worked one-to-one. So now stepping into working with businesses, that's a little bit of a step up, but you know, to really affect change on that level, I think, you know, that I don't know how you go about doing that.
Yeah, mass societal level is a very much a different conversation to some degree, because there's so many things going on there that yeah, we have very little control over as personal trainers. Admittedly, most of who we deal with are like more in the top 1%, top 10% bracket that can actually afford personal training, even if it's at the more accessible level. And then I often think about the other 90%, because I'm from the other 90%, and I know what they're thinking about. I know what their struggles are. Trying to have a conversation around health and wellness with someone who's like basically worried about being evicted or whether they're going to be able to pay their electric bill next month. It's kind of like a little bit futile because it's really not immediate and it's really not top of concern. Then you have conversations with people that are fairly affluent, fairly wealthy, and then they over obsess on small details that don't really matter. And you're kind of looking at them thinking, you're so unbelievably well that this isn't a concern for you. I know that you saw this post on social media. I know you saw this TikTok or whatever, but it's really not relevant to you. You're so well
Yeah.
that that particular study wasn't in relation to your demographic in the first place. It is a massive disparity. Speaking on the people that we do deal with, though, and I don't know how much time at this point you've spent working with businesses. Have you so far had conversations or been able to implement strategies that you've seen a positive shift towards healthier behaviors in office spaces?
Yeah, I think when we talk about corporate wellbeing, we're essentially just talking about people, because you do go into an office setting and maybe the business setup is different. You know, you're approaching business to business, so that side of it is different. But then once you're in there, you're just back dealing with people again. So in that regard, it's exactly like personal training. You're up against exactly the same things that as a personal trainer is always up against, and you're trying to support people with exactly the same goals, because those individuals who come in for personal training are the ones working in those offices that we're now approaching. So the approach is different, but once you're in there, it's exactly the same. So in that regard, pushing positive change, as you know, it's meeting people where they're at. You know, some people are raring to go, and they have already made their minds up that health and well-being is their thing. And for them, it's more about tweaking things, sending them in the right direction, giving them that extra edge. You know, that they're already running, but now they want to know how to run faster, or they're already going to the gym, but they want to be a bit leaner. It's that kind of stuff. But then there's also people who are not even considering health and well-being, and that's possibly where it's slightly different, because we're going into work with businesses, and they are now, the business has now chosen that they're our customers, but they aren't necessarily the people who've gone to get a personal trainer themselves. So that's interesting, because then how do you get those people interested in the first place in even thinking about the health or the well-being? How do you meet those people where they're at? And I think that's more about what we're trying to do, is that kind of relatable angle. If we, as personal trainers and people in the industry, present ourselves as being perfectly fit, perfectly toned, eating well, and always being mentally on top of our game, I mean, what is it? What are we providing for those people to latch onto in terms of what we talked about at the beginning with relationships and conversations? It's like, well, you're not like me, so I don't know if you're going to understand what my day looks like or what my motivations are. And you're a bit weird. You go to the gym all the time and you eat different stuff to me, and I think you're a bit boring, to be honest. You don't go out, you don't drink, you know, you don't forget what you did on a Saturday night because you had too many sambucas. Yeah, we're different, and so why would I listen to you? I don't want to become like you, so why would I listen to you? Whereas someone who comes into a personal trainer, there's at least that sort of sense of they're acknowledged already, they want to make a change of some kind, and so you just finding out what that change is and then giving them what they need to make that change, basically. So that's the difference, really.
That is very, very interesting. I I can massively relate to a lot of that. And interestingly, you've kind of touched on one of the advantages I've had as a trainer over most other trainers, because I've not lived a life of health and well-being. And again, I've come from like a very different background, and I was a smoker, and I did have one too many sambucas on a Saturday night. And I've been a very unhealthy person. I've lived off of like, at one point, I was living off of a double cheeseburger and two slices of cheesecake from Asda a day. And don't get me wrong, funnily enough, I was in a calorie deficit because my activity was so high and I was losing weight. And I've used that story to sort of basically drill home the impact of why calories matter more so than anything else in that particular scenario. But a lot of the conversations I end up having with people is to make myself a lot more relatable to them. And I'll use really extreme, well, what would be expected as extreme from a personal trainer examples to kind of disarm them a little bit. So I'll talk about, not that I actually ever have, but I'll mention about people doing lines of coke on the weekend and all these other kind of things. And I'll say it in a tone that makes it very normal so that they know, like, asking you to tell me that. I'm just aware that that's what people do. And I'm aware that people are going to be doing that whilst I'm working with them in this process. And I'm very non-judgmental of it because I get people. I've lived amongst people. I am a person. And you get to be a person as well. But whilst you're being a person and you're doing all these like really fun things, you can also maybe make some choices that are going to benefit your health too. And I definitely have clients right now, and I'll never like just have a conversation with them about it, but for sure they do lines of coke on the weekend. Like, I got a picture of their lifestyles. They fit a certain stereotype. They might not do it all the time, or they might be going through periods where they don't do stuff like that. But I'm sure they do every now and again, or they have, and it really makes no difference to uh, how we're going to proceed forward in terms of still discussing how do they work in health and wellness and fitness into their life. And they do. If you're patient with people, they gradually make these changes all by themselves. I'm 39 now. The whole of last year, I had one glass of wine. It just doesn't really occur to me to have a drink. Not to say that I'm going to say no on the right occasion, but it's not part of my lifestyle anymore. Last time I smoked a cigarette was, I don't know, 8 years ago. And I physically couldn't do it now. Like, there's things I just cannot do. I would be eating a tub of Ben and Jerry's every day in my early 30s. I wouldn't even be able to get through one now. Like, in one go, like, there's things are just not happening anymore. And kind of going back to being a personal trainer, having life experience, being relatable, and then kind of going through that process of I've changed from who I was, and therefore I believe that you can change from where you are, but it doesn't have to happen today. I think that's probably been sort of the most impactful thing, just having that patience, not having that harsh judgment, not giving someone the hard truth, kind of just sort of nod along and being like, well done for making some of the changes that you made so far. And I really like that whole thing about you're just dealing with people when you're coming into a business setting. And yeah, there are going to be some people that are not even like, it's not on their radar to make any changes whatsoever. And there are those individuals, the champions of your service that are like, okay, yeah, like ready to go. Give me a plan for like, give me a list of things that I can get from prep that are a good idea and the things that I shouldn't, and so on, so on. And yeah, I really like introducing that human reality. Like, I'm a real person. I do find it has a huge impact on the people that aren't super invested in their health and wellness right now to kind of be like, oh, okay. And you're not just some sort of tight top wearing, celery juice drinking, marathon runner, and you're just a person, which has, if you're a person, you have the choice. You can choose to do something healthy. You can choose to do something unhealthy. And I've learned to do healthier things because I feel better. I behave better. I get better outcomes in life. And I've certainly had a lot of fun. My idea of fun would be different now. Your idea of fun at 25, your idea of fun at 30, and your idea of fun at 40 and 50, they change. And just knowing that when you're dealing with somebody in front of you, I think if you've got like a startup full of 20-somethings, it's going to be very different to dealing with a fund that has, a bunch of 30 to 40-somethings who would probably have families.
Who may be behaving worse than the 20-year-olds, by the way. My idea of fun is still the same, but I just can't execute on it anymore.
That is fair. I think that's a very fair statement. I think that's an extremely fair statement, especially with that particular
I've had to adapt, I've had to find other ways of being that don't result in a hangover, I have to convince myself that I like other things. No, it does change, you're right. And I think it's interesting what motivates people, because at times when I've tried to be very empathetic and gentle and understanding and really try to develop the internal motivation within a client, we talk about that kind of intrinsic motivation. They do it when no one's watching, and I'm coming at that from a coaching point of view, really trying to develop that in a client. And then I was sort of at the time where my mindset was let myself slip and kind of wag the finger a bit and told them, you really should be doing better at this. And then afterwards, my reflection on it was, whoops, that was a bit old school. That was a bit young Russ coaching, too much of myself, putting myself and then my motivations onto them. And then all of a sudden the next week they come back and go, that thing you said just totally revved me up and I got going. So where people are at the time, it's a very, very hard thing for us to do as PTs to get that right all the time, because it's really complicated because what motivates us shifts. You would have definitely experienced this. Everyone has experienced this, where you fall off the bandwagon, whatever that means to you. I know that means different things to different people. Obviously, like somebody's falling off the bandwagon who is religious about their fitness could just be that they forgot their Tupperware one day and had to go to, that could be for them. That's like, oh my God, what's happening here? I've slipped. And then somebody has, on social media or in their life has come in with that really harsh video. I too used to watch videos of like CT Fletcher shouting at people in the gym and that kind of stuff. And that, before bicep curls, and that always used to get me up for it. And that might be the perfect thing they need right at that moment. But then when they've been on it for weeks on end and they're feeling great, they watch one of those videos and they go, oh, come on, it's all about intrinsic motivation. So it does change so quickly depending on how someone's feeling at the moment. That's why coaching is so interesting and so hard.
It is very much, you can't get it right all the time. You don't even know at the time whether you're getting it right or not. You literally just have to pay attention to the outcome. And then even then, how much of the outcome is because of your contribution towards it. Sometimes there's so many variables, you don't even know why they've really shifted towards that particular behavior change. How much a client communicates with you, they never communicate everything. Sometimes they just tell you what you want to hear because they're human and they have a relationship with you and they kind of want to, especially the people-pleasy ones. And not getting too caught up in your own contribution or your own sort of work that you're like, I did that. I'm responsible for that. When you don't really know if you are or you're not.
I'm responsible for all my clients' successes.
I'm always wowed by a lot of these individuals, and it's interesting because they don't necessarily see, like I might see them in this really great way, like really well done, right, for everything that you're doing right now, especially given the context of the average person. Like you are achieving phenomenally here with your fitness, with your training, with your wellness and whatever, and they don't see it themselves. And then and I've had this conversation with quite a lot of trainers. We just do the same thing. We think we suck all the time. Not just in our training, but like everything else as well. And so you're kind of like scratching your head at this person that's like making tremendous progress, but sort of feeling like, oh no, you give them a compliment, they don't want to hear it. Yeah. And then you end up doing the same thing. Does that ever have you ever experienced it not quite being like that?
Yeah, it's why we respond so well to personal accountability from somebody else, and why the combination of expectation and support seems to be the most powerful. I mean, there's me, like I love sort of swatting up on this kind of stuff, because then it enables you to be able to explain it in lots of different ways to clients. Someone comes to you with a question and you can kind of give them not just one answer. This is where we're better than ChatGPT. We can give them multiple answers, so we can give it from different perspectives, and the way that message is then received by that person, particularly when it's delivered in a good way, is what you were talking about there, is that inner critic. So we all have that, and at certain times in certain contexts it'll be a lot louder and a lot more destructive. So when we're doing something that's novel and new to us, like a new client starting in the gym and they come in, that's not their environment, that's our environment. And so they will be on high alert for differences between them and other people. They'll be doing social comparison more rapidly than they would otherwise. They'll be overthinking. It's an overwhelming environment, or can be. And so that inner critic is going, you're not good enough at this. Look at that person over there. They're dressed better than you. They've got better physique than you. Jesus, I can't squat that low. Look at that. It's like, whoa, it's like information overload. And it's all negatively slanted because we're looking for those threats. And it's that threat of, I'm just going to be massively status down here. We all hate that. We all hate status down. And so when personal trainer is there and they're sort of taking you through that process, it softens that, because as you said there, you're looking at the person and thinking, you've done great. I mean, you've got, often the situation is with the clients, like, you've got more money than I have, and you're still managing to come to the gym, and you've got a personal trainer, and you're taking all these steps, and you're managing that, and maybe family stuff as well, whatever's, basically we're championing their life. And that contrasts with sometimes how they're feeling about themselves, which is, I'm not good enough and I should be doing more, and we all do that. So I think that's where that human relationship thing comes in, and where fundamentally, like you were saying, as a personal trainer, seeing your clients, putting them on a pedestal is the best way of being able to help them achieve what they want, in terms of counteracting that negative self-critic, which we all have.
I think that's a really, really brilliant reminder for any trainer that might be listening right now, is how your client might be feeling in that scenario. It's so easy. Like, listening to you is like, yeah, of course, it's so obvious. But when you're in that session with that client, it is so hard to remember that for them, it is a foreign environment. For them, they are still looking around in amazement at all these other individuals that can do all these amazing things. You know, someone might deadlift 300 kilos in front of me, and I'm not even going to bat an eyelid. Like, I couldn't care less. But another person looking at that who's not spending all day every day in the gym is like, what the actual hell?
Yeah, especially as you just pulled your back, picking your keys up off the floor. Do you know what I mean? It sort of looks like an alien world.
It's completely
But at
alien.
the same time, they will. I mean, you know, have faith that your clients are that capability they have that you're looking at and putting them on a pedestal for will come to bear in the gym. I mean, if you get the conditions right, you know, they will. You'll be amazed how quickly people will orientate themselves in that environment and start doing really, really well. Every client's different. Some people will just always prefer to go to a gym with a personal trainer because it always makes them feel better, and they're not interested, or they don't have the bandwidth to like go to make it a mission of theirs to treat this environment as their own. But a lot of clients will, within a couple of years, will be in there deadlifting 300 kilos.
Yeah. No, quite a few people do actually. I've always aimed for that. This developing self-efficacy is a big goal of mine with the work that I do with people. It comes from a selfish place that I'm working on now, which is I didn't want anybody to rely on me because I didn't want anybody getting too close to me. That was the real reason. I'm like, right, I don't want you to feel too attached. I don't want you coming in and training with me 3-4 times a week, more than you really actually need to do. And so I always had this thing of like, you know, just a couple of times a week at most. And my aim here is that, you know, 10 years from now, 8 years from now, 20 years from now, that you're still able to do everything that you can do in these sessions with me by yourself, which is a really good, noble thing, even though it was coming from a place of, I just don't want you getting too close to me. And that was my own personal hang up that I'm currently working on for not just work reasons, but personal reasons.
Yeah.
But it has helped because I have met a lot of trainers where they almost don't want their clients to ever leave them. They want their clients to be coming in 3, 4, 5 times a week because it means sessions for them, and which, you know, equates to more money for them. And it's actually been really helpful for me in terms of the work that I've done with people, that I've created lots of opportunities for them to become very self-sufficient. You know, I guess we were even talking about how vocal a trainer is within a session, and the newer the trainer, the more vocal they are, to a point where I'm like almost non-existent, because I'm trying to create this experience of how do you motivate yourself? How do you push yourself? How do you remind yourself of the cue in this exercise? How do I create enough opportunity for you to develop the skill needed at this level of intensity so that you can do this competently without me here? And interestingly enough, people don't just leave once they get good at something. They have 100 reasons as to why they work with you. But I like the fact that I've done a good enough job with this person that they do feel confident going into a gym or going into a fitness environment and being able to engage in fitness. I think that's our job.
Yeah. There's a really nice sort of, I suppose, maxim within neuroscience, which is a lot of the stimulus that comes in from the outside world is a scaffolding on which our brain builds permanent structures. So you going in and having conversations with your clients and giving them tips on techniques to begin with, your words and reminders and hands-on cueing and demonstrations of exercises and showing them how to use the mirror and, you know, bony landmark, where do you want to be, what position do you want to be, how should it feel, all of that experiential sort of coaching of this is what it should feel like to do that exercise and this is the intent behind that exercise. That's all like layering on scaffolding to, at the moment, a brain that doesn't have those structures, those memory patterns, that interaction between your sort of hippocampus and your insula and your basal ganglia and all these areas that coordinate movement, and even linked in with kind of our amygdala and our emotional centers. Like, how does that actually make you feel when you do that? How you tick that box, you get that little reward system kicks in with dopamine. It's like all of that stuff that's going on that would turn someone into a gym bunny. That initial scaffolding is what we're doing. And then once that scaffolding has got permanent structures in the brain, it changes the function of how somebody operates. When they pick up a bar, there's well-trodden neural pathways in their brain because they've rehearsed it a time and time again, and then it becomes second nature. And that's the point at which, from a coaching point of view, you can switch gears from I'm setting up scaffolding here to I'm now nitpicking, I'm athletic coaching, I'm saying, you know, I'm reminding, or it's the relationship angle, it's the motivation.
You almost become the building safety inspector at that point.
Yeah. So then it's just, then at that point, you know, as a coach, shut up. That's the point. You know, once you've done that initial scaffolding, because if you shut up at the beginning and somebody doesn't have that scaffolding, what are they doing? What are they paying for? Whereas once that's there, you know, we've all been guilty of just continuing to coach. And hopefully you feel intrinsically awkward enough when you're over coaching that you eventually stop doing it. But there are some coaches I've seen who don't, and they just keep going. And I'm looking at the client's face and thinking, they know that instruction backwards. They don't need more of the same. They need something different now. So yeah, I love that interplay between the neuroscience side of what's going on in terms of exercise science, but within the brain rather than in the muscles, and then how that maps onto coaching techniques and how we think about what our role is as a coach. I find that kind of stuff fascinating. So you have to stop me if I carry on about that too much.
No, that's fantastic. I'd love to hear a lot more. So I've definitely had scenarios where I've worked with a client for years, right? And we've done all that. We've done all the scaffolding work. We've built great foundations. They've been able to execute exercise technique, a varying degree of intensity on an exercise consistently whenever I'm supervising. And then even years in, there'll still be times where that client forgets what they're doing, doesn't do it correctly, or I'm very disarmed because they've done it 1,000 times super well, and then I get them to do it, and then they suddenly like do it like they're not doing it for the first time. And I'm just like, what the hell? What did you do that for? And then I have to kind of go through that coaching process again. Like, what's happening there?
I saw something where I saw a post where somebody had asked ChatGPT what are the sort of 5 weirdest and most sort of destructive human sort of frailties, if you like. And I think it was second or third on the list was basically, you know what you should be doing and you don't do it. So this is apparently from skimming however many millions of conversations, data points, whatever AI is doing, I don't know. That's apparently what it's taken from that. So there is just something seems to be fundamentally inherently human about we get bored, we forget, memory is not permanent, we get distracted, so our attention can be very easily taken elsewhere. I've this wonderful client who he's in his 80s now, and he spends most of his time thinking about the economy, and as a result of that he has made fortunes beyond what we could ever even imagine. But trying to introduce exercise scaffolding into that situation is like trying to throw something into a hurricane. It's just not going to happen. It's just going to get bounced off. And because his mind, his motivations and his desires and everything that makes up his identity, his raison d'etre, like his reason for being, is about the economy. It's about how money works. It's about how business works. It's got nothing to do with health and fitness whatsoever. So yeah, I think I could probably give him cues until the day dies.
I think that's pretty fair. I think that's a big shift that occurs, because initially when you run into that particular example that you just gave, where it's kind of like, why is this person even here if they don't care? Why are they not listening? Why are they not engaged? Why do I have to remind them again? Like it's been 7 months now and we've gone over this again and again and again. Why are you even coming to these sessions if you're not going to, And then you realize that the reason that they have you there is because they can't afford to put that amount of capacity towards this thing. And that's why you're there, to make sure that it's happening. You're an extension of themselves and you're doing that thinking for them and you're making sure that it happens for them. And it took me a long time to really appreciate that. Okay, got it. Every time you turn up, basically my job is going to be to do the thinking for you and tell you these things so you can kind of just focus on whatever you need to focus on. I can appreciate that for myself. I've hired coaches before, and it's such a great experience when someone else is taking care of the programming for you. You can just turn up to the session, you can just do the work, and you're making progress because like someone else is being objective about you. You're not like making your own silly little decisions, and it's a reduction in stress, and it helps a tremendous amount. I think if you are a trainer listening to this and you've not actually worked with another trainer or had somebody else like take you through a process, definitely do so, because it massively reinforces what you're actually doing for other people.
Oh yeah, I mean, this is a relationship I have with my business manager and accountant. I love that they do what they do because it means I don't have to. And every time I turn up, they're probably quite exasperated with the fact that I haven't done my numbers homework. So different people have different skills, but everyone will notice. I mean, if you're to all the listeners now, it's like when you go to your hairdresser, you still want a great haircut. You want them to know what they're talking about. But how much more do you know about different scissor types or different cuts or layering or texturing? I hear these words. I don't know what they mean. I know the difference between a good haircut that I like and one that I don't, But that's it. And that's exactly the same with the PT session. It's like you realize that all of that stuff that happens in the workshops that barbers attend to upskill, the result is they're able to cut hair really well. But when the client comes in, they're interested in getting a really good haircut. Some clients will go in and want to chit chat all the way through. Other people go, great, this is 20 minutes or 40 minutes or whatever, when I don't need to speak to anyone, so don't talk to me. And it's the same with clients. It's not about the barber, it's about the person coming in to have their haircut. And it's the same with PTs. Some people will want to go in and they will want to exercise and feel like that whole hour they were moving, their muscles were engaged, everything that the trainer said, do this and it's going to feel like this, happened. There was no pain, and they went out there sweaty and feeling like they had a good workout. And for them, that's value. And if you can mold yourself as a coach to be able to deliver that just as much as you can deliver a 55-minute session where most of it is chat, and you try and squeeze in some exercise, that's more exercise than they would otherwise have done, chatting to somebody else outside of the gym, then, and they keep coming back for that. For me, I don't put sort of my ideal session for a client above that. But again, that's different trainers do different things. Some people go, I have a system, you come along and I train you in my system. And you see that with classes all the time, right? It's like you come along to a Pilates class, you're going to do all the moves everybody else is going to do. All these moves are good for you in theory. How well you do them is going to be dictated by your level of fitness and all that kind of stuff. But you're essentially slotting into a system. That works for some trainers. For me personally, I've always kind of gone the other way, which means that sometimes it takes longer with those clients who prefer chatting more and aren't as interested in fitness to get them into it. And other trainers will go, you need to be getting better results with your clients. You need to be, they need to be losing weight. They need to be doing this. And I'm a little bit more of the school of thought that the results that the clients want are the ones I'm aiming towards. And yes, I know the technicality of how much exercise intensity, duration, frequency is optimal for muscle development or whatever they want. And they may want that goal, but they may just not be in the place where any of that is relevant to them just yet. And if I can move them towards that over time, then great. But my hairdressers, not try to move me towards being a barber. So I try not to move my clients towards being a PT.
I think that's a very, very brilliant way to put it. I love that analogy. It makes me think about not just myself, but other trainers and how I'm able to observe the thoughts of other trainers now in different stages of their journey. And there is a point where, as a trainer, you feel insecure about so many things. The most common one that we start off with, we're very insecure about the way that we look because we think as a PT we're supposed to look a particular way. When it comes to our clients' results and how much that really impacts us and how insecure we feel about that, and everyone is judging me because my client's not losing weight, everyone is judging me because my client's still struggling with this exercise 6 months on, everyone is judging me because we're chatting too much in this session and my client doesn't look like they're working hard enough. And you go through this journey of becoming more secure within yourself as a trainer, where it's no longer about anyone else but you and that client. And then all you're able to recognize is this client is turning up consistently. This client is engaging with a healthy behavior consistently. I'm aware of the positive changes and the mindset shifts that this client has made that anybody else isn't aware of. It doesn't matter to me that we haven't lost any weight. It doesn't matter to me that they're still trying to learn this exercise. It doesn't matter to me that we spent 55 minutes chatting and only doing 5 minutes worth of work. The only thing that matters to me is that this person is still continually engaging in something that is beneficial to them and they feel like they're getting value in return for it.
Don't you feel like that that body image focus and intensity is like a gym specific thing though? Because I've just been away to Italy on holiday and it was a very active place. There was mountain biking going on, there was stand-up paddleboarding, kayaking, lots of swimming. It was on the coast. There's lots of people running because there's a big long coastal road that just tracks the beach for miles, people on bikes, and there's far less intensity applied to the sort of aesthetic in those environments, which are equally good for people's mental, physical health, like sports versus gym. There isn't a winner there in terms of living a healthy lifestyle, right? And there'll be some things that the gym can't do that sports does do that's better, and then the other way around. And I just feel like people of all different shapes and sizes getting involved in those sports and being active and being outdoors and being social sometimes looks a lot healthier and a lot less intense, especially with regards to social comparison and that kind of scrutiny of how do I look versus somebody else. Because it's basically just, are you fit enough to be able to do the thing? That's the only comparison point. And then sure, when you're doing it, it's just it's a much more fun activity. Whereas I can understand how a lot of people look at the gym and be put off by it, because some gym environments are great, but most gym environments are not great for that sort of stuff, because you're doing repetitive movements. There isn't, it's isolated because you're doing it generally on your own, which classes are better at, but even then there's a lot of comparison going on. There isn't a sort of external goal that you achieve during that session always. Whereas when I'm surfing, if I catch a wave, that's what I was there to do, and that feels great, and I've kind of completed the session. But with gym exercises, you sort of finish and you look down and you go, well, am I Arnie yet? No. The crushing disappointment of not being Arnie every time I do a workout. But it's like, no, I haven't completed it. And that drives people mad, I think, who have a lot of aspiration to be in very good shape. That thing of being able to look down and go, I'm not there yet, drives people to do. I mean, it motivates people to keep going to the gym for sure. But for some people, it's kryptonite. It's like they then can't get off it.
It leads people to a lot of very unhealthy behaviors.
Do you think? Yeah.
I'm probably in a really good place to speak about this because I've gone from spending a lot of time working within bodybuilding specifically, training people for competitions, to also then working with regular everyday people. And funny enough, I've got a client of mine, and I love this guy. He's awesome. I think he's awesome. And he's 50 years old. He's got 2 kids, wife, senior, whatever, like this significant fund, and he spends his weekends doing like surfing and mountain biking and all these other kind of things. And he's a super active guy. He's done triathlons in the past, and he comes into the gym, and I, kind of basically do strength work with him. And he's not super like fussed about how much weight we're lifting or what we're doing. He's kind of ticking the boxes. He's getting it done. The thing that he's really excited about when he comes in is showing me videos of this wave that he caught, right? Or like this, this ski trip that he took in these cool videos. And I really admire how he engages in being active as a human being, and how he then gets his family and his kids involved and all that other kind of stuff. Versus the conversations I would be having with somebody getting ready for a bodybuilding show, it was not a happy thing. It's not an exciting thing. It's all negative. It's all, I'm not good enough. This isn't big enough. I'm not lean enough. There's a lot of there's a massive contrast in negative to positive in those two scenarios. It's one of the reasons why I've gravitated more towards working with regular people and me doing the work with them that supports them having access to all these other healthy activities in their life, versus looking a particular way, that never being enough. The types of individuals that then are sort of attracted to that, if we then kind of do personality profiles on these individuals, generally tend not to be the most mentally healthiest individuals. And so there's a lot of work that they need to then kind of do on that end. And when you're dealing with them, even though it's not really your place to, you're kind of having to manage those aspects of them as well. So yeah, the gym tends to attract the type of person that is going to be a lot more obsessed on the way that they look. That environment kind of breeds that a little bit. You're now seeing a massive trend of much younger people adopting performance-enhancing drugs as part of their sort of way to get from point A to point B. That actually for me has been very alarming, because I'm just like, I am now in a process of learning a lot more about performance-enhancing drugs. And the more I learn, the more I'm like, whoa, we really don't know that much about this stuff. I'm not learning more about the benefits. I'm learning a lot more about the costs. And that is making me feel very concerned, because I'm like, most of the people that I know that are doing this stuff or that are considering doing this stuff, I don't think that they have any real concept truly of the costs of what they're doing. I'm non-judgmental when it comes to it. I'm from that bodybuilding background. It's a big part of it. I'm trying to understand and learn it myself. But as you get older and you get more health conscious, and one of the things that I'm trying to learn more about is, the actual health status of a person, not just their fitness level, and understanding how performance enhancing drugs are working against that and working against aging well. And I'm really surprised, because even I didn't fully appreciate the extent to what cost you're paying when you go down that road. And so, yeah, the guy who's excited about doing surfing on the weekend isn't thinking about taking performance enhancing drugs. The guy who's looking on Instagram and thinking, well, that guy's in really good shape, or that girl's in really good shape, and she's got, 350,000 followers, And that's what I'm trying to aspire to. How do I get there? And I've been working out and I've been taking everyone's advice and I've been in a calorie deficit and blah, blah, blah. I still don't look like that.
That's me. That's legit me. Just sat there jealously, just scrolling through. You just desperately trying to use their age as a. I'm like, oh, they're in their 20s. It doesn't matter. They're in the 50s. They're not as stressed as I am. It's just we all you know, that kind of social media thing can be a real vortex. You know, it sort of sucks you in. But yeah, it's a good point you make about that person's not even considering performance enhancing drugs, and I think it does speak volumes about the environment that you put yourself in when you're training and who you're influenced by. And you know, we're really susceptible to our environment. I mean, we're like, surprisingly, we all would quite like to believe that we are free thinkers and whatever, but every time we hear somebody who says something that changes our mind or has an influence on the way we think, we absorb that whether we like it or not, and then we try and make sense of it, and then it becomes part of whether we avoid it or whether we move towards it. And so this is happening all the time. And of course, the algorithm, I mean, have you tried adjusting your algorithms just by clicking on random things over and over again? Because it takes me about 4 or 5 clicks.
I usually go and click on not interested on a bunch of things.
Oh, right. Okay.
And that's super
you do
quick.
it better than I do.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Because I try and manipulate it and see how many refreshes of the homepage it takes for it to be completely just one dimensional. You click on 4 cycling posts in a row and then refresh each time. Your whole feed will be full of people with 20 grand bikes who look like professional cyclists cycling in Tenerife, seemingly have no job and just doing that for a living and having a great time. Meanwhile, I'm sat at home on my phone. It's just a really harsh comparison.
It's super instant. My algorithm can literally shift off of me clicking on one thing. It will multiply. It's like a virus. It is literally like a virus. And you do have to consistently click on not interested, because you might have wanted to see that one post of that one thing, but it's not like you don't want it to kind of cloud your entire environment, because yeah, it does have an impact on how you then start feeling about yourself, how you're thinking about yourself. I've definitely gone through bouts of not being on social media at all. I've actually now switched where my Instagram is basically just my personal account. I'm not planning on making any sort of marketing or work related content for it. It is literally just, here's my account, here's the people that I know, I get to keep up with them, they get to keep up with me. I don't spend much time posting on my stories of like my lunch or whatever. I don't feel this pressure to be present digitally. A lot of what we're doing here is the content that I'm going to create for, you know, trying to have impact within the wellness space. I don't need to be a personal figure on Instagram, and taking time out from Instagram every single time I've done it has done wonders for my well-being. Like, I have felt so much better. I have felt so much less stress, anxiety. I have felt more positive towards others. How negative I feel towards others, and how positive I feel towards others has been directly correlated with how much time I spend on Instagram specifically. I cringe at LinkedIn, but it doesn't make me feel super negative about other human beings. I can find myself hyper focused on why I think this person's an idiot. It's definitely, I've worked hard to move away from the comparison trap of this is how I look and that's how that person looks. I'm in a really good space with that, to a point where I'm a lot less obsessed with my own physique and how big my muscles are, or, you know, how heavy I'm lifting or whatever. That's super, I'm so far removed from that being relevant to me. And I'm really, really, really grateful for that. And a part of that was probably me taking time off of social media, allowing myself to lock into other aspects of who I am as a person, other aspects of the world, other aspects of what we do. And I'm super thankful for my clients as well, because they're people that I get to work with in fitness, and it's not bodybuilding, it's not aesthetics, it's not physique related at all. Like, there's no conversation of that. It's not even weight loss related. It's purely just fitness and well-being related. And I'm seeing fit, well people in their later ages living very fulfilling lives, and they're a lot happier than I am. Forget about the money thing. I'm like, yeah, I'm aspiring to be you, man. This is great. And you train on average like twice a week. On average, these people go to the gym twice a week. That's it. And maybe they're active in you know, in their life in other ways, and that's fantastic. And I aspire to that. I don't want to be someone that goes to the gym 7 days a week and the highlight of my day is the bloody training session that I do, and then everything else just revolves, you know, my peri-workout and nutrition and how much sleep I'm getting and supplementation and blah blah blah, and being hyper obsessive about it. None of that has made me happy. It's on the opposite. I've been depressed and miserable, and at times borderline suicidal. It's not good, and I've watched that not just in myself but in so many other people, that I don't want to be promoting that as this is how to be well, because it's not. That's a bit of a tangent. I don't know But yeah, that's how I feel about it at this stage.
Well, it's good that you're obviously in a better place
sure.
now, and I think it'll be good for people to hear that for sure, because I think that's the sort of thing that we've found is also happening in the workplace, is that there are these aspects of environments like the gym environment that are more toxic and not health promoting, but might seem to be a good thing. This is the thing, that is that the camouflage is, this is what you should be doing. And then once you get into it, that's when you discover that there are bits of it you really need to work hard to avoid. And the best way of avoiding it may well be, in the end, to bring yourself out of that environment. It may be too difficult to thrive in that environment. And we see the workplace mirrors that exactly. So this is the best company to work for because this has got the best career prospects. So this is where you should be, same as the gym. But when you get in there, you realize that the prioritization of your time is you're now a unit which is working within this cog. And we expect you to be at work all the time. We expect you to be on your metal all the time. And you will be looking around the room and comparing yourself to all the 300 kg deadlifts that are happening. That guy's bringing in this much money. And so you get the same sort of psychological patterns of comparison between you and other people. And that same inner critic gets triggered. And that same mental health slide of the fact that you are in a job that ultimately lots of other people who are aspiring to that would snap your hand off for. Same as the people who are going into the gym and getting good physiques. But what's happening at the same time is you're ending up with, your mental health gets to a point where you go, I don't care anymore about being in this job. I need to extract myself from this. And that's, I suppose, what we're trying to help businesses stop. Don't be one of those businesses, or don't be one of those gyms, or don't be one of those personal trainers that makes the mistake of appearing like you're the place to be. But unfortunately, what you're actually doing is you're unwinding people's mental health, and you're making it very difficult for people to thrive in that situation. And it's not easy. And, work environments are challenging because, corporate structures are competitive. And so what another business is prepared to do, you either compete with it or you don't. And sometimes not competing with it looks like bankruptcy and everybody loses their jobs. So that it creates this impression that you need to work harder all the time. You need to do more, and if in a financial point of view, you need to get a better physique. You just earn more all the time, never big enough, never lean enough. The business is never moving fast enough. We need growth, and it becomes one-dimensional. It's like if financial success is the only metric that you're using to measure progress, this is when we see people, I think the statistics published that we look at, that lawyers are twice as likely to consider suicide as general population. That for many years has been a profession we have taught the next generation to aspire towards because of its financial reward, its intellectual accolades required to even enter that field. And yet what it's doing to people, it's weird that we would as a society push people towards that job. And it's weird that we push people towards the gym if we know that those toxic things exist. So for me, my mission is how do we get those environments to not do that? Because it's perfectly possible. There are businesses out there doing really good stuff in terms of prioritizing office design, which has shifted dramatically over the years, and we keep sort of flip-flopping between, do we silo people, do we open plan it? But there's been changes there that have had a tangible effect on people's well-being. Flexible working hours has allowed people to have more autonomy over their time. We're understanding more about recognition of people's efforts. Do we just pay people more? That's not everything. People care about other things. So people have to feel valued for their contributions. We have to give people their time back. We have to make sure people have got the resources to do their job. And in that regard, if we bring it back to personal training, you're doing the same thing. We're doing the same thing as personal trainers. It's like making sure that your service is not accidentally toxic by just being aware of, how your clients are reacting and being aware of looking after their physical health and their physique, lifestyle, and the mental health. It's like, that's why it's so challenging. That's why it's so fun. So that's my challenge to all PTs, basically, is up our game. So if you're a physique coach, your primary goal is to develop somebody's physique, but don't break their mindset at the same time. Get your head in the books, talk to psychologists, educate yourself, and talk to each other and share, and just aim for the best of both worlds and see where you get to. And understand that, because I won't understand that bodybuilding world. Somebody will have a better grasp on how to keep bodybuilders mentally healthy than I will. But where are they? That's what I want to see. And the same in every single field. You see it in athletic populations as well. Athletes getting pushed to the max to perform, and then breaking. Simone Biles is a great example of that. She did a sensible thing and took time out, but why? Why was that not picked up? She should be surrounded by the best coaches in the game. I mean, she is a once in a generation talent, and she had to drop out the competition because her mental health was in such a bad place. And yet the world's media was focused on her saying how brilliant she was. So I don't want it to be too much of a somber message, but I just think that's my challenge basically to the fitness industry, personal trainers, and that's what we're trying to achieve. And it's hard, and therefore it's worth it.
There's definitely a shift that's needed towards, the mental well-being of the client, the athlete, the person. There's so much emphasis on the win and the achievement, not just with external pressures, but even the pressure that we give ourselves. Russ, there's like at least 12 other things I can think on right now that I would love to pick your brain on, but I'm gonna like wrap it up here, and hopefully we get another chance to delve into more things. Thank you for coming on. This has been super insightful. I've probably even had to go on a bit of a journey for myself.
Thanks for having me on. It's been great. I really enjoyed it.
No, it's been brilliant. Anyone who's looking for Russ, I will be putting all of his contact and social media handles and stuff in the description below. Feel free to reach out and get in touch with him. And yeah, hopefully we get to chat to you again soon.
Thank you very much.